Here we go. Dinosaurs not extinct and carbon dating. This is different than what we usually do. It's usually about living pterosaurs and eyewitness sightings of modern pterodactyls, as you can call them. May 14th, 2021. So what is going on here? Feel free to participate. It'll be a while before we get people making comments, but sure, get right in as soon as you'd like to. What is going on with carbon dating and dinosaurs? Well, we're going to have some images of Triceratops. This is not restricted to that dinosaur, but let's see what's going on here. We have many fossils of Triceratops, but in recent years, some of these dinosaur bones, the fossils, have been dated, in particular in North America, and including the Triceratops. And this is dating methods that are directly, not just looking at the assumptions about the soil that's around them and the different layers of sediment. It's directly dating the dinosaurs themselves, what's left of them, the fossils and so on. And that's what this is about. And we're going to look at the Triceratops. Now, I have to get into a website that you can't see here because I tried to get prepared today and get everything ready, but there's just so much to get into this. First of all, these are the dinosaurs that were dated by carbon-14 dating research, C14 or radioactive dating. It's done over a period of years with samples from bone of several different types. Allosaurus in Colorado in the United States, and also in the United States is a Hadrosaurus in Alaska and Montana, the Apatosaurus in Colorado, the Acrocanthosaurus in Texas, and the Triceratops in Montana. Now, this relates to a conference that was held in Singapore, and let me get the details on that. This was a number of years ago, 2012. It was I want to get you the correct information here. It was the conference was August 13th to 17th, 2012 in Singapore, the Western Pacific Geophysics Meeting, and there was two different organizations that sponsored that. It was the American Geophysical Union and the Asia Oceania Geosciences Society. And there was one particular lecture that was astonishing. It was some scientists, one of them was from Germany, and they did some testing at carbon dating of certain fossils, a number of different fossils of dinosaurs, and they were very careful to avoid any contamination. They went through the normal procedures with this. And the carbon-14 dating showed something astonishing with the dinosaurs, including the Triceratops, like we see here. Let me get into my, sorry, let me get into the more details here. I want to get you the ages, get the details on these datings. Oh, they're so much more recent. You know, normally if people think of dinosaurs were dated, and they're just millions of years old. Let's look at actually some of the numbers from this direct testing of them, not relying on old assumptions that go back to 100 years or over 19th century, you know, long before any of us were born. It's not based upon those assumptions. Let's get to the Triceratops, for example. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 datings of the Triceratops, and those were before the present, 30,890 years ago, 33,830 years ago, 24,340 years ago, 39,230 years ago. This is plus or minus a couple hundred years or something, but it's basically that general neighborhood. And finally, 30,110 years ago, plus or minus 80 for that particular one. but the basic error here is usually around like plus or minus 70 years, plus or minus 140 years, plus or minus 200 years, and so on. Now, what is going on? We have dinosaur bones that people have assumed have been, just sitting there for many, many millions of years ago, dozens of millions of years ago. There's common assumptions that go back way back for generations and back into the 1800s. And it's based upon certain things that people have assumed about ages and so on. But this is direct testing, no longer just going by, well, what certain people believe about the sediments that they're in and so on, and according to evolutionary ideas about what they should be and how old they should be, no, the direct evidence is that these are a tiny fraction of that age. They're much more recent. What does this have to do with modern pterosaurs and dinosaurs that are alive? Well, if people see in different parts of the world a living pterosaur or a living dinosaur, we really need to pay attention now, because they did not live. The ones that are tested with radiometric carbon dating, they did not live nearly that long ago. If they did, they wouldn't even register on the machinery they have. But they registered the radioactive carbon. They had it, and it was not just one particular bone. It was a number of bones for particular, for example, Triceratops. There's different areas, different digs, and they still had consistency with these numbers. They had it's not contamination. They did all the calculations. They did all the preparations and the procedures to be sure that there was not any contamination. And in addition, the particular ages themselves, the dating ages that were done in the laboratory with the machines, they show certain areas where the dates are that just not correlate at all with contamination situation. In fact, they actually did some with contamination just to test what contamination showed something way different than what was in these. So there's two different evidences. There's no contamination involved here. These are actually very old. Now, what is involved with this? What is the significance of this? Is it possible that there's some weird thing going on, or maybe some horrible mistake that somebody made, or the labs are doing something wrong or something? No, these are standard laboratories, dating methods, standards, is all the normal ways that dating is done for things that we scientists generally have assumed, like human remains and things that could be just a few thousand years old or even less. Same procedures, everything's done the same, except it's on dinosaur bones. And guess what we have? Well, what is the context of this? In recent years, scientists have been examining certain bones like a T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus rex, remains, the fossils, and they have found something extraordinary. They found soft tissue that should not exist in something that's millions of years old. It just makes no sense. And there have been theories thrown out there. Oh, why is that? Well, something is weird and there's bacteria. No, they've done deep research. It's not bacteria, not at all. It's actually T-Rex that lived very recently compared with these assumptions that have been going on. These are incredible findings that go right along with these carbon datings that have been done on dinosaurs. Now, we mentioned T-Rex. It's not limited to T-Rex. Can I just get into this? I'm going to have to leave this image in here so I can get on another browser that you can't see. Now, this is a carbon-14 in dinosaur bones. The acro, I think Acrosaurus is what's on it. That was in Texas. The dating was over 32,400 years. Another one of the same dinosaur, and I forgot what the acro stands for, but that one was, it's not listed here. It's abbreviation acro. But that was in Texas. The dating was 25,750 years, plus and minus 280 years. Another one, acro, it's also less than 26,000 years ago. Another one was close to 30,000, but less than 30,000. and another one for the acrodinosaur, 30,640 plus or minus 90 years. And then the hadrosaur, number 1, that was 31,050 years. And all of these are less than 40,000 years. All of them, I'm looking at all of them. Hadrosaur after hadrosaur, triceratops sample after triceratops sample, Apatosaurus, 38,250 years plus or minus 160, and this is in Colorado for that one. What is going on is that these dinosaurs that had the bone samples, they're really not millions of years old. They didn't live millions of years ago. And let's look at this in context, in particular with pterosaurs, because that's my specialty. It's modern pterosaurs. I don't know of any pterosaur fossils that have been dated this way yet. I presume that this will happen. If I understand correctly, though, what happened soon after these carbon dating testings, all the laboratories around the world, or all the major laboratories, stopped accepting dinosaur remains completely. They made a policy, no more dinosaur bones. They will not test them because it's just absolutely against the common assumed old assumptions about evolution and ages millions of years ago for dinosaurs. They will not deal with them. Let's see what happened at the conference itself, and this is important. There are several researchers, scientists that had done the testing, done the analysis of this testing, and done all these things. And they gave a wonderful lecture that was well received. Sorry, I don't have the images here. I had them ready, but there's just so much to put on here and get prepared for this. A future video, I should have more images. You can see more things, and not just triceratops, but actual images that are related to other things. So here's what happened. I'll tell you what this is, okay? People enjoyed that particular, many lectures. And people that were in this particular lecture enjoyed it. They thought it was great. And there's apparently no complaints about it. And so very soon after all these lectures were done, the leaders of this conference, they put together a web page to put on the abstracts of these lectures and so on, and everything looked normal. But soon thereafter, I think it was a matter of perhaps a day or two or three, I don't know exactly, but it was pretty soon when the research and scientists were still in Singapore, as I understand. At least many of them were, if I understand correctly. And then somebody came in rushing to tell these people, our site disappeared. Our abstract is gone. It's not on the web page. They looked at the computer. Sure enough, their abstract disappeared. What happened? Well, look at here. This is lecture number 4, and it's listed. These lectures were all in order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all down. Their lecture was number 5. Guess what? I found this web page when this had happened. So it's disappeared now. It's been taken off the internet. I don't know if you can find it anywhere now, but I took an image of this, put it in my computer, so that we have it now. You can see what really happened. This, I put the red marks, the arrows and the circles, of course, I put that myself, but everything else is actually what was on the internet on this website soon after the lectures were all completed. Lecture 4, tracing soil, organic, whatever. And then after that is lecture 6, BGO2 is a code, carbon dioxide. Those are not really related much, except that it has to do with a carbon dating, They put them together, I guess. But the lecture that's in question was number 5. Where's number 5? It was deleted. Now, here's the thing. The scientists, they called, I think it was a phone call. He says, what's happened? Our abstract is gone. It's not on the website. And they said, oh. And guess what? The two organizers, or two men that were in charge, they got on and they sent a letter to the scientists. This is the copy of the letter. This is what was sent. Let me get into it. It's hard to read here, small print. Let me get a magnification of this. Dear Mr. Miller, presentation BGO2, etc., values for 10 Cretaceous, Jurassic, dinosaur bones from Texas to Alaska, and so on. Also USA and China and Europe. So these dinosaur bones were found in different parts of the world. Here's what the letter said. This is the first part of it. As a result of comments from attendees at the recent AGU meeting in Singapore, we have examined your abstract, which was delivered in session BG02. Now look at what comes next. The interpretation which you present in your abstract is that the age of various dinosaurs, previously interpreted as being Mesozoic in age, are less than about 50,000 years. You report that these ages were calculated using C14 methods. There is obviously an error in these data. The abstract was apparently not reviewed properly and was accepted in error. For this reason, we have exercised our authority as program chairs and rescinded the abstract. The abstract will no longer appear on the AOGS website. Wow. You notice some things about that? Is this censorship? I'm not condemning anybody to hellfire, but we're human. To err is human. We make mistakes sometimes, and I think this, by these two men who were in charge of that organization, that particular conference in Singapore, made a big mistake here. Censorship that was not appropriate. They just, without notification, without asking questions, they just cut off that page, that part of the page, and just censored that abstract from that lecture, which people at the time apparently enjoyed and had no agreements with. Notice some things about this letter, this part of the letter. So you're part of these, these is obviously an error, but they don't mention what the error might be or was or could possibly have been related to, and no mention about anything about the error, what the error was. It was not reviewed properly. Well, why did they say that, and who is responsible for that? They accepted the scientists to come and give their lecture. For this reason, we've exercised our authority and so on. Well, if there's an error, what was it? Why didn't they ask for details from the scientists who'd done the research? Why didn't they, before just deleting that part of the web page, ask them what's going on? Are you sure there's not a mistake here, or did you check something? Did you do your checking that you're supposed to? They didn't do that. They just assumed, well, it has to be wrong. Why? Because of assumptions from the 19th century. Yeah, and even some assumptions from before that, before the 19th century, in the 1700s, actually late 1700s, when Benjamin Franklin was still alive, regarding the assumption that all pterosaurs were extinct. That goes back to the time before Benjamin Franklin died in the 1700s. It's old assumptions, and we're teaching this as doctrine, dogma in Western society. Dinosaurs and pterosaurs all became extinct in all species. They don't notice the paleontologists don't say that. They don't actually say that, but what is taught as dogma is just that. Every single species. That's what is assumed, and everybody thinks, and that's what's portrayed in the media and so on. Now, let's see. We don't have anybody here yet. This is the I should mention, this is the Friday afternoon live stream chats, normally about reports of apparent modern pterosaurs in different parts of the world, eyewitnesses worldwide, and so on. I haven't talked much about dinosaurs until tonight, but we're getting into it. And we're getting into these carbon dating testings and how they relate to soft tissue that's found in dinosaur fossils as well. These are two different methods of coming to the same conclusion, that at least not all dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, at least, if not all of them. But when they continuously find this, now, as I understand, this testing has not been able to be done so much in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years or so, perhaps 10 years, because of the findings themselves, because consistently finding that dinosaurs are just much more recent, it seems it's had a big impact on these companies that have the equipment that do the testing in different parts of the world, and they no longer accept it. I haven't checked on this in recent couple of years, but 4 years. But at last time I heard, these laboratories around the world were not accepting any dinosaur fossils for carbon-14 dating. Don't think it's a coincidence. I think this is all related. I'm not saying it's in the technically conspiracy. I'm not a conspiracy person saying conspiracy people have done, but it just certainly is. Looks like there could be some something wrong going on here that kind of gives the same results. What you call pseudo conspiracy, not pseudo. It's what's the expression when it's virtual conspiracy. In other words, not literal conspiracy necessarily, but definitely virtual conspiracy about amounting to the same result is what we don't get to the truth, and people are not getting this. Yeah, Ben Shal Shesaraha, laughing out loud, millions of years. Yeah, precisely. Yeah, and I just a few weeks ago, I got an eyewitness report from in the United States. I have to get more details on the precise location. It was near an old abandoned mine, as I understand, in the Midwest, I believe. I need to get data, but I haven't got the email response yet. So I just tell you what I've received. It was a sighting recently, as I recall. Don't have the email in front of me here, but it was of a living creature. It looked like a velociraptor in the United States. Now, if that was the only thing I'd ever heard, I might not really mention it here because it's just one person saying they saw one velociraptor. So who knows what's going on? But that's not an isolated event. Just a few years ago, I got an eyewitness report from a lady who worked for a government agency or social worker for something. I don't recall exactly, but she was near the border of Louisiana and Texas, and she saw a velociraptor. It was not small. This one was not too small. It rushed off quickly into the bushes. And I also, years ago, I read something about a sighting in the Four Corners area of the United States. And now I don't have a direct connection with an eyewitness. Something I read in the book. But those three things together, plus something somebody had recently about Florida and a velociraptor, it's just too many velociraptor reports in the United States to just dismiss them and say it's impossible. There's just too many of them. And I think people might be coming forward now. We'll see. But I don't want to encourage hoaxes. Don't hoax me. Don't try to fool me. But yeah, we have reports, and we have to pay attention to them because these particular scientific methods that show that the dinosaurs did not live that long ago. Fernando, thank you for joining us, and also Ben Shal Yazahala. Thank you very much for joining us. Is it true that these channels just try to get people to be more religious? What channels are those, Fernando? This is a Protect Animal Life. We don't usually talk about religion on this channel, but I do have a lot of contacts with the creationists, because they are really heavily involved, and I consider myself, in some senses, I am a biblical creationist for sure, but there's actually different religious ideas, and people assume it's all the same, but it's not exactly. I don't have all exactly the same beliefs about the ages of the universe and thing as my associates. It's complex. I don't really care. I don't cover that here in these video chats. It's for another channel or other channels. Nathan, thanks for joining us again. You've been here before, I know. Are you going to publish either of those reports? Well, I have already. I was just looking at, I don't have a setup that you can see the images or anything. I don't have the URLs to show you now, but I've published a couple of blog posts in the past about what's going on with these carbon-14 datings. I've been for 2 years, I've been so involved with YouTube videos about modern pterosaurs, however, like this one that's flying over my head here, disappeared. They do that. And the image behind my head here. But yeah, I've been so much involved. Uh-oh, I had to duck here. Yeah, and I enjoy making the animations of pterosaurs flying behind me here. No, I've been so involved with reports of eyewitness sightings of reports of modern pterosaurs around the world in the past few years that I haven't really looked into these other things so much. I have just so much time to spend on these things. I've been making YouTube videos, blog posts when I can, and I got behind in those. But it's just so much to cover. But tonight I thought we need to get into this so you can see things in a perspective, how these things are all related. Q-Dingo, hey, thanks for joining us again. Q-Dingo's back. There's evidence most carnivorous dinosaurs could be herbivores and omnivores. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm grateful people do research and they look into things with the fossils, and the paleontologists do wonderful work. I'm not condemning paleontologists. I'm saying this is wonderful discoveries they've made, but there's a lot of things going on today in the world with living animals that most paleontologists have no idea of or have very little understanding of. Nathan Long praises, I meant the Velociraptor reports. Oh, okay. Yeah, the Velociraptor. I have mentioned the other one in the Louisiana, Texas area near the border of those two states. I mentioned that a few years ago. And I talked about this, I think about a week ago, or was it 2 weeks ago, about those related reports. Apparently velociraptors are seen in different parts of North America. But it's not my specialty, you know. Some of my associates who are interested in modern pterosaurs, they've actually gone on expeditions looking for dinosaurs deep into Central Africa, very remote, dangerous, difficult jungles and swamps in Central Africa, Congo area, and so on. They've done a lot of things there. I've never been there. I've never looked for a dinosaur, just pterosaurs. And KJ, for a person who believes in the literal Bible, wouldn't the flood have killed all the dinosaurs? Well, yes, getting to the religious things. Well, that could get way off topic, but basically, it's, yeah, true. We have all these dinosaur fossils, some of them all buried in one place. And a giant flood would cause the dead things to accumulate in one area. Fernando Otre, the creator, made a video about people that make myths somehow connect to the Bible and say that people use other names of creatures like these. Well, I would recommend people avoid Trey the Explainer. It's a horrible video about the rope, and it just goes off one bad comment after another. Rumors. He takes rumors that are negative about me. He mentions me, you know, in the video. He goes all on these rumors that he's taken, and some of these are rumors that people have gotten from other rumors. It's just nonsense. Why don't people just quote me if they want to know what I believe or think? Just quote me. I've written over 1,000 blog posts. Who knows how many words in those blog posts over the last 17 years, actually 18 years now. And I've written so many books, nonfiction books about living pterosaurs, I have trouble keeping count. I think it's 5 now, not counting the other extra editions. And a scientific paper in a peer-reviewed journal about modern pterosaurs in the Southwest Pacific, that people really want to know the truth. And you think that I've done something wrong or said something wrong or anything, just quote me. Look at what I've actually said and written. There's all these rumors about me. Fernando, to make people become religious. Well, nobody can be forced to be religious. That's a personal matter between the person and God. I believe a person can, I think people should change. The people need to change, whether you call it repentance or whatever. People need to improve and progress and do better than they have in the past. To err is human, but that doesn't mean that we have to continuously stay in mistakes and wrong ways of living and thinking and so on. We should improve and progress and do better than we have in the past. And I believe that God will help us in that if we allow him to. But it's not something that can be forced on anybody. It's not possible. KJ, I appreciate your willingness to be quoted and openness with people who want to write about this topic. Yeah, I encourage people to give different opinions, but not to attack other people because they say, oh, the person is crazy, or say bad things about people because they have a different opinion. That's not the proper way. You need to do a little bit of careful research and trying to find out what's going on. And Fernando, I'm done with all that stuff, but I also have a report to make. Oh, okay. Thank you, Fernando. Appreciate your being here. You've been here before, I'm sure. I recognize your name. Q Dingo, beliefs can differ, but evidence never lies, though it can be misinterpreted by disregarding material so that it suits personal beliefs. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I got you there, Q Dingo. That's absolutely true. Boy, people are human, but sometimes they kind of be a little too human, for comfort, the way things are. And just as I want to get back to this in case someone is joining us, we're going over T-Rexes, fossils of the T-Rexes that people mostly assumed these dinosaurs lived many, many millions of years ago. Dozens of millions, is it quite a few millions of years ago? However, recent evidence in carbon dating going back, not recent years, but recent decades, I should say, the carbon dating shows they're not nearly that old, not nearly. They're about the same age as some human fossils, human bones that have been discovered. And these dinosaurs are not alone. It's not just the T-Rex. Other dinosaurs too have been tested. In this conference report, and if you haven't seen this, if you just joined us here, the conference in Singapore in the year 2012, after it was completed, it had they put up their webpage, put up the abstracts of the lectures. Many lectures in that conference. Lecture 5 was on these findings about carbon dating dinosaurs, and apparently they're very young. Dinosaurs are not millions of years ago at all. And that was abstract number 5. Well, guess what? I looked on the website not too long after that was put up, and I found something interesting. At first, they got all of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the lectures in order and everything. And then all of a sudden, somebody rushed into some of the scientists. Number 5, it's our report has been deleted. It's gone. Look here. This is actually taken from the website when it was there. I added the red here with the circles of red and the arrows in red. I added that. Everything else I have not altered. I'll just show you part of this. Number 4 lecture, number 6 lecture, and then if we go on, it'd be number 7, 8, 9. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 has something missing, doesn't it? It's the number 5. That lecture was just deleted without any warning. That is wrong. Not good. Get back to the chat here. The censorship is no reason for that. Fernando, I'll have to leave the report in the comments of a video. Bye. I love your content. Goodbye. Thank you for being here, Fernando. Thank you so much. Glad you could just be here, even if it's for a little bit. And we will look for the comments in the video, which will be after this is over. YouTube will put this onto the YouTube site on my YouTube channel, which is Protect Animal Life. Protect Animal Life. And by the way, on a little different subject, some of my associates and I are preparing to organize a nonprofit. And it's a lot of paperwork involved. It'll be a few weeks still, at least, before we got the nonprofit established officially. And it'll be in the state of Utah. If anybody wants to ask me any questions or contact me, just feel free to come here. Now, and this is a letter that was sent to answer the question, because the scientists, they telephoned, I think it was a phone call, the 2 men that were in charge of this conference, saying, why did you delete our abstract? We had a lecture. Nobody complained about it at the time. We had a lecture, and we give you the abstracts, and now it's gone. And then they get this letter, you know, badly done, badly done. Should not have just deleted that part of the website, that particular lecture abstract, just because it contradicts old assumptions going back hundreds of years about evolution and the ages of dinosaurs and stuff. It's just very, very poorly done. But I'm not going to give the name of the two men that did that. There's no reason people would make mistakes, and they deserve a chance to correct their mistakes. Thank you for joining us, KJ. Bird bones are rarer in the fossil records because of their fragility, correct? Oh, that's a good point. I think you're probably right there, I suspect. So rope and remains might be more difficult to find. Oh, it's a good question there. Let me get into that. The ropen is, as far as my associates can tell, my associates and I think that the ropen is descended from some species in the past of a rhamphorhynchoid pterosaur, or a long-tailed pterodactyl, as some people call it. Technically, pterosaur is the right word, but we believe it is that kind of pterosaur in general, though we don't know if they have any precise fossils that are necessarily closely related, but they're definitely, the Sortus pilosus appears to be somewhat related, at least. CTCLB27, thank you for joining us. And I think you're new here. I swear I saw a pterodactyl here as Houston, Texas 2 months ago. Yeah. And KJ said Texas is the hotbed. Oh, yeah. I get so many reports of pterosaur sightings in Texas over the last 17 years. I lost count long ago. And keep coming in. Yeah. Part of the reason we need to understand, there's hardly a state anywhere, very, very few now, that don't have some eyewitness report that's been sent to me personally. And if not to me, then probably someone else. But so many parts of the United States have eyewitnesses who have contacted me over the last 17 and a half years that they've seen a pterosaur in the United States, including Hawaii. And Texas and California are some of the, seem to be the hottest spots, but we need to keep in mind Texas and California are not only big in land area, but they're huge in human population. There's so many people in those two states, millions of people, that's why, part of the reason at least, why we have more sightings. The animals themselves, they're found all over the continent. Mexico, the United States, up into Canada, and I've got many reports of Canada. They're just not extinct. There may be a limited number of species, of course, nothing remotely like what we have from fossils. And the paleontologists have so many different fossils of different kinds of pterosaurs. But yeah, there's still some species that are still alive with pterosaurs. And now we see that the dating method of carbon 14, the dating method shows that the Triceratops is not that old. Well, I'm not saying that they're still living. I'm not saying that. I know the title of the video might suggest to somebody that maybe the Triceratops is still living. I don't mean to say that. It's just a general concept, dinosaurs not extinct, meaning not all species of dinosaurs and pterosaurs are extinct. I'm sorry I have to be imprecise sometimes in titling these videos, but it's just the way that the keyword phrases work. I have to be trying to be at least a little successful in the video SEO and so on. You have to use certain phrases to get find people that are looking for you. In other words, there are many people, viewers on YouTube, that are trying to find videos like we have here on this channel that I'm very, very privileged to be able to share with you. Many, but they have trouble finding me, so I have to use certain words that might be what they're using to search, even though technically they're not right. Pterodactyl is a word I usually use, but really technically the correct word is pterosaur. All right, last breach 84. I don't know, it's not about politics here, but thank you for joining us. Any questions about dinosaurs and pterosaurs that might still be living? Protect Animal Life, which is the name of this YouTube channel, is pretty much about mostly about reports of modern pterosaurs, eyewitness accounts of apparent pterodactyls around the world, including North America, including the United States. That's what it's about. And I thought it's about time we get into these facts, these evidences that some dinosaurs lived much, much more recently than many people have assumed. Nothing remotely like millions of years ago. It's not just the carbon dating, which is one method, but it's also that in recent years there's been soft tissue found in dinosaur bones, including the T-Rex. Soft tissue that just couldn't, you can't imagine how it could be millions of years old. It just soft tissue in animals that have died just doesn't live, it doesn't exist that long as soft tissue. Normally it's supposed to be fossilized long time ago. It just doesn't make sense unless that T-Rex and the other dinosaurs' bones that are similar, unless that dinosaur died not that long ago. And we do have actually eyewitness evidence, if you call that, in cryptozoological evidence of something like a T-Rex in certain areas of the world, including a particular area of New Britain Island. It's be the eastern area of New Britain Island I've seen a few years ago. It was a large, frightening, ugly creature the natives described. It was like horrible looking and about the size of a water tank, and I think it had killed and eaten one or more dogs or something. Anyway, it went back into the swamp, and the soldiers made a tiny little, probably just a tiny little jaunt into the swamp and came right back. I'm sure they didn't spend much time in the swamp and went right back out, but nothing was found, of course. But this description suggested something like perhaps a T-Rex living in the around the turn of the century. It's quite a few years ago now. I lose track of time. I've been doing this for so long. It might have been late in the. No, I think it was early in the 21st century, but it might have been late in the 20th century. It was not that many years ago. So thank you for joining us. And we have a CDC last breach STFU. This isn't politics. Oh, sorry, I didn't get it. Okay. Trump or Biden roping in disguise. Well, anyway, whatever. I'm not up to date on all of modern abbreviations or so on, but it's basically a culture we live in Western countries like the United States. And I know I've talked about this over and over and over again, but we're raised in this culture. Human culture shapes a lot of our thinking in many different ways. And sometimes we can kind of get around it. We can get out. It's not all bad. I'm not saying all human cultural things are bad. It's just that it has a huge influence on the way that we look at the world. And we often are not aware of how much influence it is or exactly how it works, because we're inside it so much we can't see it from the outside, because we're inside this human culture that we have. And there are different cultures, different strengths and weaknesses. I'm not condemning or saying one is great and one is horrible, but it's just the way that we live in these human cultural bubbles in different parts of the world. Corvus Glaive, thank you. I don't think you've been here before. Welcome. Everybody knows that dinosaurs are dragons. The British wyvern looks just like a pterosaur. Yeah, there are. And remember, too, in that sense, if there's any differences, because there are similarities and differences, I believe, in my opinion, to the ancient art in Western Europe. But generally, I believe that the artists that actually did the drawing, they were not the eyewitnesses themselves. They took maybe a description somebody gave, and they took maybe some picture that somebody else had painted or drawn before, and then they did it what they felt would be good, and then that's their image, not necessarily very much correct. It's just the way it goes. That's what they give us with their artwork for centuries ago. And KJ says, STFU isn't a nice thing to say. Oh, okay. Well, I won't repeat it then. Corvus Glaive, thank you. Glad to be here. Yeah, that's great. You're new here, I'm pretty sure. So glad you're here. KJ says Carl Schucker recently shared an old illustration that looks like a pterosaur but predated the discovery of pterosaur fossils. Yeah, that's a good point. Many works of art predate the discovery of pterosaurs, which is when Benjamin Franklin was living, but it's still the late 1700s is long after some of these paintings and drawings were done about dragons and things, which go back many centuries sometimes. The CTC LB 27, sorry, bro, but he is not nice. That is also did the bug mom said, Joe, I hope make that big Ken. Oh, I don't know what that means. But anyway, yeah, the carbon-14 dating method, maybe I could just go on that just a little bit. Generally, has to do with dating things that could have lived within centuries or a few thousand years ago or a few tens of thousands of years ago. It's not been generally used for a long time on dinosaur bones because people just assumed, well, it makes no sense because those are so old that they wouldn't have any carbon-14 or anything like that in them. Carbon-14 is a particular isotope that doesn't last in that form. It will decay down into simpler form of carbon. It basically has to do with the cosmic rays, as I understand it, hitting the carbon molecules up in the atmosphere and then causing them to take on, if I understand it right, and if I remember, to take on an extra neutron or two, as I understand, and then that eventually comes down to Earth, and it's kind of complicated, but basically it's often fairly accurate for recent things, but there are some people that say that that the things that it dates are actually overestimating the age. That's important, overestimating, not underestimating. But some scientists say that it gives an overestimated age for certain things. For example, I just heard something like this. I haven't tested it out. I don't know the details, but some time ago, somebody actually did carbon dating on a penguin and found it was, I think, 1,000, 2,000. It was very many centuries old, but the penguin itself was still alive. It was not dead. It was alive. So there is possibility for certain errors, depending on if it's something that eats fish. Of course, that makes a difference too, which penguins do eat fish. That might have something to do with it. Last breach 84. Thank you for joining us. Smelly knee growth occurs in pterodactyls according to many scientists. I don't know about anything like that about smelly knee growth. I have no idea what that means, but usually we examine sighting reports, and they're sighting reports of apparent pterosaurs, pterodactyls as people call them, and they're found, those pterosaur reports come from all over the world. Just got one from, we're talking about Singapore, where they had this conference related to dinosaur dating fossils. Singapore, and that was a sighting of a pterosaur just not too many years ago, I don't think. We can get into that sometime. I think I already mentioned that in another video, though. But we get, yeah, pterosaur sighting reports all over the world. Even from Rome, Italy, right by the old Colosseum. Once I got, about a year or so ago, I got a sighting report from there. But many of the reports come from the United States. But I think that has a lot to do with me and my web pages, my websites, because I get reports from Americans because they find my sites easy. It's in English. I have a few web pages in other language, Spanish, French, Polish, and so on, but mostly in English. The Melvor, thank you for coming back here. I think you've been here before. What would you say are the most credible eyewitness accounts? By that I mean either scientists or others distinguished enough that skeptics would have trouble dismissing them outright. Well, if you really want to get into it, yeah, sure. Not all scientists who have a sighting of a modern pterosaur want to put out their names, though, because they could lose their job or something. You know, in more than one case, I've had that situation come up. And I know one lady back east a few years ago that contacted me about these weird, big, huge nocturnal flying creatures that she saw in New Jersey. And she told some people about it. She lost her job about a year ago because she was saying things that people say were crazy. Yeah, but we could say an example, for example, Peter Beach, who is a biologist, a former professor of biology in a small college up in the Portland, I believe it's in the Portland, Oregon area. Don't know the exact college it was, but he's a biologist, and he's went on an expedition to New Britain Island and a number of years ago with another man from that same part of Oregon. They saw a pterosaur, and it was videotaped. It was horrible quality video. It was horrible, unfortunately. But yeah, if people want to, if people really need to be open to this, it sounds so strange because of our culture. Where in New Jersey was this? And I have it in front of me. It was. Is there a Happy Valley in New Jersey? Is it something like Happy Valley? Something like that. But that was where it was anyway. Nighttime, and she pulled over, stopped her car, and there was a roadkill. She doesn't know what animal was dead on the road, but it was a roadkill, and two creatures with wings were eating it, and then there's a larger one on the other side of the car. And yeah, it was weird. And I'm not sure, even if it was a pterosaur, it was not the kind of description I normally get about modern pterosaurs. McFall. I'm sorry, I don't pronounce that right probably, but thank you for joining us here. Yeah, thank you so much. And delighted you're here. I don't think you've been here before, have you? Oh, there's a Hidden Valley here. Maybe that's Hidden Valley, is that it? I don't remember the name of any town, though. It's kind of in the countryside. But it was an intersection of this highway or road. We can cover that sometime in the future. You want me to make a note of that? And another of these Friday afternoon live stream chats, we'll get the New Jersey creature. Because the lady who reported that to me, after a while, she told people at her work, she's a language teacher, teaches Italian, this particular school, and they fired her because they said she was acting crazy and saying crazy things. Well, she told them that she'd seen these weird flying creatures. So there is a danger in our culture if you tell people you see a pterodactyl. Yeah, Cuting, we're living in a scientific dark age. Learn more on the universal model and new millennial science. Yeah, I know something about the universal model. I think I have something about that here. Oh, right here on my. Sorry. Yeah, universalmodel.com. Yeah. Yeah, I have their business card right here. Yeah. Interesting. My wife keeps telling me I got to get in touch with these people, and I say, yeah, I will. But I get so tied up in making videos and things. And yeah, I have to get back with them. And of course, for a while we have this COVID-19 and nothing's happening. How can they have lectures with hundreds of people attending with COVID-19? But now things are improving, so I should get in touch with those people. Thank you for reminding me about Universal Model. Thank you, Dingo. I definitely have to get in touch with them. Okay, I have met many like you, Doctor, from the Institute of Creation Research. Oh, thank you. I'm not Dr. John Whitcomb, be aware. He's older than me. When I was a teenager, I was one of the first readers of the book that he and Dr. Morris had written back then about the flood of Genesis. I was one of the first readers of that book back in the 1960s. And I was so fascinated because his name is almost the same as my name. So that helped a lot. I was interested, fascinated. and Creation Institute of Creation Research, ICR. Now that's different than the Creation Research Society, the Institute of Creation Research. It's different, but I think they have similar things. I wrote a scientific paper for the Creation Research Society quarterly. I worked there for only a few months. Dr. John Morris and his father, oh yeah, both awesome, yeah. Relation. I'm not a close relation to Dr. John Whitcomb. I forgot his middle initial now. John is spelled his name. Not a close relation because in my family on my father's side there's more girls than boys, more aunts than uncles, and it just goes back. So not too many relations by the name of Whitcomb. Yeah. Okay, last breach 84. If you click Alt F4 on your keyboard, you can enhance the brightness. Oh, really? Oh, does it need to be? I don't know how it's coming up. How do I look? Will that work here? How does it work with the webcam? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, yeah. In San Diego. Yeah, I remember San Diego's, or at least one of them were. Well, thank you very much. I think I'm awesome. There have been so many people over the years that think of me more like a devil than anything else. But no, I'm just trying to get to the truth. I want to support your work. Thanks so much. Now, you want to send me an email, McFall or McPhail or McFall. Get in touch with me by email. And any of you, of course, anybody can do this. Just contact me through this web page. And that will get a very simple form. It's not difficult to use it, and then that will get me into communicating by email with you. And we do have some need of help with a new nonprofit that comes. We're welcome to volunteers. Anybody that wants to help in different ways as volunteers in the new nonprofit organization, we'd be delighted. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell me how. Yes. Yeah. You can also just make comments. After we're through with this live stream, we're live now. We've been almost an hour now that I've been on here tonight, and this live stream is completed. It'll be approximately 6:30, about an hour from now, I think, when we finish. But when it's completed, YouTube system will put this on their regular videos on my channel, so people can go to that and watch all of this over again. A lot of people haven't seen it. They were not here live, so they couldn't comment in this chat and so on. But they'll watch it, and you can put a comment under the video there, make a comment, and we can get in touch that way. I can provide it easier for me to provide the URL for getting in touch by emails and so on. What is your plans? Yeah, the main thing I'm interested in now is just getting this nonprofit organized. So much paperwork for a nonprofit organization before it can be officially established. I'm not going to have any problem. I don't think we're going to have a problem with getting donations. I mean, over the years that I've been doing this without a nonprofit, we've gotten donations, monetary donations. It's not a problem with that. But the paperwork is something else. All the paperwork involved. Ooh. Yeah, I do have, last breach 84 has a good comment here. I wonder if pterodactyl eat fruit. Generally, they eat other things, mostly birds and bats and fish in general. That's some of what they eat. Sometimes carrion, dead things, sometimes, but I don't think that's necessarily a major part of the diet for many of modern pterosaurs, maybe some of them. Some of them might specialize in that. But fruit, I did get a report from, not sure, I think it may be the Singapore, what's now Singapore. Many years ago, Singapore was not such a gigantic city as it is now. It's actually a city-state, but, so the places where, anyway, it was a kind of a rural area, countryside, jungle sort of area, and somebody saw one eating some orange fruit. pterodactyl eating orange fruit, but since that time, that same area is now part of the city. That's the way life goes with city growth, you know. I've heard the live call of the Mokalimbimia. It was a roar like no other. Oh, that's interesting. In the Melver, I'll have to go back and watch from the beginning. I think I missed the carbon dating talk. Yeah, we can get back to that. Love those streams. Keep them coming. We can go back to carbon dating, Institute of Creation Research. Yeah, that's different than the Creation Research Society, which sounds very similar. The name is kind of similar, but I'm pretty sure that's different. Institute of Creation Research is different than the Creation Research Society. Different. It's just that the name kind of sounds similar. I wish one would show up on my bird feeder. Yeah, KJ. That would be fun. Yeah. Don't get too close to the bird feeder at that time. Yeah, thank you, my father. Gotta be with you. The Congo swamp is, yeah, the place. Oh, dinosaurs. Yeah, we can get into that sometime. Should I make a note of that? Expeditions in Central Africa. Maybe we should have a live stream about that. Central Africa. Of course, that's dinos. Though we can also get into eyewitness reports of pterodactyls in Africa too. I have sighting reports of people giving me from Africa, as well as indirect, you know. And which brings up something, yeah. One against Logan Paul. Yeah, the thing is, many people just assume that anything about modern dinosaurs and modern pterosaurs has to be nonsense, so they just dismiss it. This is Western people, not natives of third world countries, no, but people in Western countries that were just so indoctrinated into the idea that all species of dinosaurs and pterosaurs became extinct many millions of years ago. So anybody hears something like that, they just dismiss it right away. And any thought that comes to their mind that might seem to support that, they'll just put that in without investigating, and they just throw it in. You see, misidentification, it was a bird, or somebody's playing a hoax, you know, or just some religious person is being crazy. And they don't realize the depth of the investigations that have been going on scientifically over the past few decades, especially the last 20 years. Try to see it at the feeder, yeah. Kongomato or other names, yeah. Kongomato is, there are different spellings of that I've seen. I forgot which one is the most popular, Kongomato. Anyway, yeah. I have to tell you, though, don't go to English Wikipedia to get information about anything like Ropin or Kongomato. They've censored that. It's censored on the English Wikipedia, but in other languages of the world, a lot of these things are still on the other languages of Wikipedia. And I've done research on that, and that is something. We could get into that sometime if you like to. Is anyone watching the Logan Paul versus Floyd? No, I don't know. That's not the subject of this. Mikhail, I am very preacher boy. I know this stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this has been going on for a long time, that evolution, creation debate and so on, yeah. But we don't generally get into that because we need proof. Of course, yeah, scientifically we need to catch one. Good video footage, I would be so happy with good video footage. I used to be a professional videographer years ago in Southern California. And much of my work was with forensic videography for attorney firms, making videos for court cases and so on, not criminal cases, non-criminal cases, the, what is it called? Cases that go to court, lawsuits and so on. Edit the open, yeah. But basically people just don't understand the research that's been going on. My associates and I have been doing so much writing books, and I'm not the only one that's written a book. Others have too. I've written more books than anybody else as far as I know about modern pterosaurs, but still I'm not alone at all. other people too haven't, and not all of them agree with me on different all things about religion. It's just that they see the basic truth that these flying creatures are real, and they write books about them. Yeah. Last breach 84. I know I may sound silly, but I think pterodactyl live near me. There's nothing silly about that. I tell you, when I first started investigating this kind of line of this narrow branch of cryptozoology in the year 2003, late in 2003, I learned about these sightings in the Southwest Pacific in Papua New Guinea, and my associates and I we just assumed, oh, that's where modern pterosaurs are because we got reports of maybe Africa, but also Papua New Guinea. So we went on expeditions there. I led the first one, rope an expedition in the year 2004. A few weeks later, a couple other Americans came and did the same, searching that island of Umboy. That's another story. We've gotten into that before, and we'll get into it again. But nothing silly. Over the years, I learned that you don't have to go to Papua New Guinea to see a modern pterosaur. No. They could live right in your neighborhood, in your own part of the state that you're in the United States, if you're American. Not everybody that joins us here or that watches these are Americans, you know. They're people from other parts of the world, in smaller numbers. There are people maybe watching right now that are not Americans, they're not from the United States. They're interested in the English language. And I know I have a California accent probably as I'm rambling here. It'll be a California accent that may be difficult to understand. I'm sorry for foreigners if you're from another country. But that's my accent. That's the way I talk. Oh, but it's still there. God will send them. Yeah. I understand the scriptures on that. Yeah. People sometimes just will not believe. They just refuse. They don't want to consider something that's contrary to what they've always assumed to be the true. Qdingo proof falls upon deaf ears when it does not support your beliefs. Yeah, it's people that have difficulty changing their mind and learning things after they get away from the diaper stage of life. Once you've graduated from the diaper change, you start to getting your mind set in certain ways. I got to tell you, this is funny. Years ago, my wife and I had a childcare service. We had a little child. She was about maybe 8 years old at the time, and I picked her up from school to take her to the childcare. And she knew about my book about living pterosaurs, and she said, "Who will buy your book? Crazy people?" So I put that in the introduction to the book. I thought that was cute. Funny. No, normal people can read my books. You don't have to be crazy to read my books. Yeah, but generally once a person gets into kindergarten, you know what happens when a kindergarten first starts, the first day of kindergarten. Ooh, they're so humble and so nervous, you know. They will listen, they will do whatever they're told sometimes, not always, but they'll behave and they don't know what's going to happen. But once they're finished with those many months of kindergarten, they finish kindergarten and sometimes they get that, what I call the kindergarten syndrome. They just feel like they know everything, practically everything, before they get to first grade. They've already learned everything. They've learned so much, they must be about everything there is to learn. It's just a lot compared to what they knew when they started kindergarten. That's all it is. KJ from the Mouse of Babes, yeah, it's just funny. But we tend to start getting really kind of set in our ways early in our elementary school years. And I remember another little boy. He was about the same age, maybe 7. I think he was 5. He was in kindergarten. And as soon as I mentioned the word pterodactyl, he immediately said, comet. Did you notice how quickly he said comet when I said pterodactyl? Oh boy, he was in kindergarten. Yes, love this stuff. You're a good thing promoting truth. Yeah. And appreciate all you who have come here. You guys are great. Appreciate these discussions we can have. Let's keep going. We have plenty of time. I'd like to get back, for those who are new, to this thing about the carbon dating. Now, there are different kind of radiometric datings that are done over the decades. It didn't exist in the 1800s, nothing like that, no, but in recent decades, 20th century. Carbon dating is one of those methods, but it's different than the others that are popular for dating certain soils of the planet. It's different. It dates biological material that used to be alive. And it's basically very useful for things that are more recently lived. It lived only a few centuries or a few thousands of years ago, or some cases a few tens of thousands of years ago, but it's not been used with dinosaurs. But many scientists have just assumed, well, you don't date dinosaur fossils for carbon dating, because we already know that they lived millions of years ago, and that kind of dating system, the carbon-14 dating, doesn't work with things that are too old. So of course it can't work. And so they never did carbon-14 dating of fossils of dinosaurs because of that assumption. But a number of years ago, perhaps a couple of decades ago, it was not very recently, but not quite a number of years ago, some scientists did start dating dinosaur fossils through the carbon-14 method. And guess what they found? They're not millions of years old, because they found some of that radioactive carbon still in the material. Not contamination that's with the material, but actually deep inside, embedded inside those bones of the dinosaurs. And it's not just one dinosaur, one bone. It's found in different parts. You can see this sketch of this to show the size of the Triceratops. It's found in different bones of the same dinosaur, different dinosaurs in the same part of North America or other part of the world, and different species of dinosaurs in different areas as well. And they're different bones of the same dinosaur. They keep on doing this over and over. It still shows that there's radioactive carbon in that material of the dinosaurs, not any contamination. And there's two reasons that they've shown it's not contamination. Anyway, I don't have the numbers out on the screen to show you, but these are in tens of thousands of years old, not tens of millions. I mean, what's the difference between 50,000 years ago and 50 million years ago? That's 1,000 to 1. That's a ratio of 1,000 to 1. That's a huge difference in how long ago they may have lived. It's just incredible. But they found that, and this conference in the year 2012 in Singapore, it was sponsored by two different scientific groups that got together, and they got this conference going. Many lectures were given at that conference. That's not really related to these photographs and pictures I'm showing you of the T-Rex, but just show you how you can see a T-Rex image here or there. Another not T-Rex, Triceratops images here, and photographs of models and so on. But basically, the conference had so many lectures. One of them was of these. I think there are at least two scientists, but there may have been more than two. I don't recall. But they gave their lecture about how they'd been doing this research and how the research was conducted, the procedures to be careful not to let any contamination get into the samples, and how they were so particular about taking the pieces of the bone and so on, all the details that went into the scientifically appropriate way of gathering the samples to have them carbon dated through the machines that do that. And there are now two different kind of techniques for doing that. But anyway, they got the testing done, and it showed that there was the radioactive carbon in these dinosaur bones, not contaminants that were mixed with the dinosaurs, but actually from the dinosaur remains themselves. It's important. They gave the lecture, and people that were sitting there listening and watching during the presentation of this lecture seemed to be perfectly happy with it. But after the lecture, whoa, there was and I got this web page here. I added the red marks myself, but everything else is really from the original web page that had the abstracts of the abbreviated version of what the lectures were about. So I got this years ago, and I got it in my computer, so now we have it. We can look at this because the original website was taken down. They just stopped it. It was too much trouble. They could get into trouble, I suppose. But what they did was the scientists were happy with their lecture. Everybody seemed to like it. They went back into their, I suppose, their whatever room they were gathering in, and somebody came in and said, "Look, our page is deleted. Our abstract is deleted. It's not on the website." They looked in the computer. Sure enough, it was number 5. They listed these by number: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All of these lectures. Theirs was lecture number 5. Notice here, it goes from 4 to 6. 5 is missing. I didn't make up this thing. I actually got this from the website before they took down the whole website, probably to avoid trouble, because people can see why did they delete the page, and they gave a explanation, but it was just it was very poor, badly done. Okay, I missed some things. A few dinosaurs have been sighted in New Guinea. Yeah, dinosaurs have been sighting in New Guinea. Carbon-14 is a total fraud. Well, not really. It's the best thing we have for recent living things. There's huge mistakes that are made. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's huge mistakes, but they're not nearly as bad of mistakes as the other radiometric dating, which is just incredibly off. Carbon-14 sometimes is accurate if it's done in the right conditions or with the right assumption, but usually they don't do the right assumptions with it, so they just take it as without allowing for the possibility of other things like the flood of Noah and of different things that can happen. But it can give you an idea with the dinosaurs that they're not very old. That's an important point. Even though it might give too old of an age of certain things, which it does, makes mistake in there, it can still show you very clearly that the dinosaurs are not millions of years old. It makes that very clear. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I understand. Now, yeah, there's a number of assumptions that are done with that. But let's get back to this conference page here. They got a letter from the two persons that were in charge, the persons that were responsible for deleting their information from the website. And it was very wrongfully done. It's just censorship. It's very poorly done. And then they explained it, and they say, "Oh, you know, something must be a mistake here." They didn't say what the mistake was. Notice here, they didn't say, "Oh, you made a mistake in this or that," or "you did something that was not right," or "you allowed contamination." They didn't say anything like that. They didn't say why there might be a mistake. They just says there has to be a mistake. In other words, you know, you're saying something that's contrary to our old traditions, so you have to be wrong. You know, we can't have old traditions that are wrong because we've been holding on to those for so many generations. You can't come up with something new, you know. But what is real science, really? Real science allows for change, new things to be discovered. It means old assumptions may need to be revised or sometimes thrown out. That is real science, which allows a new perspective, a new understanding, a new knowledge when you learn something new. And if there's ever a society or a university or a scientific group that eliminates certain things because they think you cannot do research in this area because we cannot accept your research because the results are different than assumptions that we've had about dinosaurs or pterosaurs or whatever. That's just dogma. It's not scientific to, it's just dogma. Pseudo-religious dogma, possibly. It's like an assumption about the purposes of life and so on sometimes, why we have life on this planet. Look at what the magnetic field change. Do you have an interest in reports of the arc beyond Mount Ararat? Oh, I used to be very interested in that, KJ. I used to be interested. Haven't done anything recently in recent years. Earth's magnetic field is in the flux. The poles are changing. Yeah, I've heard about that. And yeah, again, this has to do with assumptions people make. They assume that the planet has been pretty much the same for hundreds of millions of years, but they don't take into account things, many things like the sun. We know very simple, well, not simple, but we know from mathematics the sun cannot stay the same and have the same energy output for many millions of years. It's just not possible. It changes. The sun changes. Oh yeah, this is the dying planet like the sun. We are nearing the end of the sun. Yeah. Well, it's just the sun cannot be the same for hundreds of millions of years. It just can't. It would never work. So you can't have a planet billions of years old with things evolving and living, because millions of years ago everything would be frozen so solid that nothing could possibly live. I mean, we have things that live in Canada, for example, when the snow is over them and they hibernate or whatever, but then in the spring life comes back. But if the sun long ago was not so bright and not so hot, then everything on Earth would be frozen. It would just be all frozen, and nothing would be alive. Nothing would evolve in any way. And anyway, there's a lot into that. But basically, what we have is that the reason we have reports of apparent living pterosaurs is that there are living pterosaurs. They don't just look a little bit like them, they actually are that. Because we get details in the descriptions, and I've had this over 17 and a half years, details, what they look like with the tail, the flange at the end of the tail, sort of a diamond shape. Something like this, I suppose what you could say is a sort of a diamond shape. At the end of the tail, we get that from different cultures, different people, different languages, and vastly different educational experiences, vastly different cultural experiences. It's not just Americans. Interesting things that Q Dingo and McFall are talking about. Yeah. And some of this is way beyond what I can get into, with this, but I can understand the comments. So there's many different reports that come from Papua New Guinea, from the Philippines, Singapore, Australia, some even from New Zealand, not so many direct ones from New Zealand I personally had, but also Hawaii, other areas of the Pacific, Asia, and Africa, Europe, North America, which includes Canada, United States, and Mexico. Over and over again, we get this, the most common. Now, this is not the only kind of species that's still alive, but it's the one that dominates in numbers over the planet in general. It's the ropin, long-tailed, featherless pterodactyl. Call it what you will, flying dragon, dinosaur bird, whatever you call it. So these are found all over the place, and I think it would make for keeping our comments going. The Thunderbird, I had 2 Ford Thunderbirds. Yeah, they're nice cars. They got that from the Indians, Thunderbirds. Yeah. Yeah, so we have different words for the same thing. In Papua New Guinea, for example, I know a little bit of Tok Pisin, but goodness, the village languages are in hundreds, maybe 600 village languages scattered across these islands in the mainland of Papua New Guinea. And some of them are not much related to the others so much. So there are relationships with the language. They have so many different words for these large nocturnal featherless flying creatures that we call pterodactyls. They call ropin, indava, kor, wawanar, kundua, duis. Yeah, so many different names, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all different species. They can be different names for the same species. And then something possibly of a different species could be seen by somebody who would call it the same name as they have for something else. It's not scientific to use these names of different languages and assume that each one has a particular meaning in itself. Does anyone out there claim to have ropen remains in their possession? I don't know of any right now, though I know of some persons who have in the past. For example, a few weeks ago, I got into communicating with this lady whose husband was originally from deep in the interior of the mainland of Papua New Guinea. He was a boy. He got a rope and it was dead. He cut off the tail and used it as a toy to play like sword fighting with his friend. It's tail of a dead rope, and that was interesting. And some claim to be raising dragons. I don't know anything about that. What about the glow they have? It's bioluminescence. Generally, at least, if not always, the bioluminescent glow that modern pterosaurs have is intrinsic, at least in the sense that they can control when they turn it on, like the ropen, at least in Umboy Island. That one, for example, if it needs the light to land on a particular tree or to catch fish, it can do something in the body that causes, whether it's a secretion that comes out or whatever it is, the body will start glowing, and then it can see to catch fish or to land safely on the tree that it's about to land on. And that's how it uses bioluminescence. But that particular species or that particular animal, whatever, it cannot control when it turns it off. It basically lasts a few seconds and then it will just naturally turn off and it will not be glowing anymore. And anyone have sound recordings or links to any? We could get into that perhaps, but it's difficult for me to get the sound on this live stream session that we have here. But I have it on my computer, something that's reported to be a screech of a modern pterosaur. Do you like to eat dead bodies? Well, some of them sometimes, but it's exaggerated. It's really exaggerated. It's not nearly as much as what people think when they hear about reports of graves being dug up and a human body being carried away, which has happened in the past. Not so much in the present, because more modern times, more of the natives use wooden coffins and they have better techniques for guarding the graves and so on. My wife's tribe still knows of them long before foreigners arrived. Oh, thank you, Q Dingo. Where are you from, Q Dingo? I don't recall you. You mentioned that before. Does any bird have this ability? Well, yes, and that's a long story. Do you want me to go into that again? I've done it in another video. But basically, and this is my belief based upon another researcher and what eyewitnesses have said, long in the past, maybe many centuries ago, and this is my opinion and take on something that somebody else has researched, all barn owls, those white owls that have the white on the underside of the feathers, on the underside of the wings, all barn owls had the ability to glow at certain times to help them catch food, however that was. In more recent decades and perhaps centuries, I suspect they've been so successful in just normal hunting techniques that they no longer need that ability to glow at night. So they've been losing that ability. It's like, it's not evolution, it's the opposite of evolution. When a trait is lost over time, you can call it evolution, but basically you're losing a particular ability and they're not able to glow very much. But some of them can still glow when they need to. If a bird is starving and it needs to catch insects, it will glow at night, and the insects that come to the light, it will feed on them. That's been witnessed before with barn owls, but it's not common for barn owls to glow except in those unusual conditions. Yeah, cuting is correct. Barn owls. Deep sea fish species. Yeah, bioluminescence is common in some things in the oceans. Yeah. KJ, I'd like to see some hooters that glow in the dark. Yeah. Now it's hard to say. Let me tell you this: if you ever see a spook light, a ghost light, any part of the United States where they have them in different areas. If you see a spook light and it kind of, and you think about the barn owl, think, is it flying like a barn owl? And if it kind of going close to the ground and kind of going slowly and going back and forth like a barn owl would be doing at nighttime, but it's a glowing light, it's probably a bioluminescent barn owl. That's my opinion, probably. But if it behaves differently, it might not be a barn owl. In fact, it might possibly be a modern pterosaur. But that's difficult subject. It's difficult to get into because there's so much we don't know about the animal world and how this bioluminescence can work in different areas. Wild geese, if only they'd eat the rotting pears under my pear tree. Yeah. Rotten pears, grab the pears before they get rotten if you can. Cook them, and my wife would cook them if she could, if you can bring them over. Yeah. And Q Dingo, animals adjust to environment. No life has ever changed species. Yeah, I can understand that. But that's way beyond the scope of our videos here in general. Well, sir, let me ask you, have you seen these? Personally, I've never gotten anything remotely like a good sighting of a modern pterosaur that you could possibly say would be a convincing sighting. I've been looking for 17 and a half years, and 3 times I had seen something that possibly, maybe one of those three days I might have seen one, but possibly none of them were. There's not good sightings. The best one I had was something that could have been bioluminescence at a distance, but I'm not sure. It's possibly some crazy people with lights on their drones at night, flying in a mountain area, which is dangerous for drones to be in at night, which doesn't make much sense, but it's possible. Okay. Have you ever seen any cryptids, UFOs, ghosts, etc.? No, I don't think I've seen anything really spectacular. I know a number of people I've interviewed or talked with who've seen UFOs and things. And of course, hundreds of people that have had sightings of modern pterosaurs, hundreds of them over the years. And occasionally someone reported a dinosaur that they've seen and they will tell me about that, or a dinosaur that they've talked to a person who's seen it. So it's indirect of modern dinosaurs. Q Dingus, many have seen creatures in media and believe. How can you see unless you believe? How can you see unless you believe? Yeah, well, the problem we have here is a little different than many people would expect. Here's a different angle on this, okay? This is the point. When a person in a Western country like the United States, and this is many people, just take a typical person. They're just outside for some reason, and they see a modern pterosaur, roping or whatever it is, flying overhead. They're often just they're just be kind of spooked. They're kind of be shocked, and they just think they don't know what to think. And there's, what in the world? What was that? And they try to forget about it. They don't want to deal with it. They're outside for a particular reason. They're doing something or they're going somewhere. And they don't want to be interrupted by a pterodactyl. It just makes no sense to them. So they try to just forget it and pretend that they never saw anything. That happens a lot. And the reason is complicated. I know from interviewing those who do report it to me. They tell me about the other people. But that's a long story. But people can see much better if they have some kind of open-mindedness before they have a sighting. In other words, they have some kind of degree of some openness to learning to something, so that when they see a pterodactyl, they will understand the possibility that maybe it is what they think it was. Maybe it was the way it looked like. Maybe it was what it looked like. And that kind of person is much, much, much more likely to get in touch with me and report what they saw. Okay, and KJ says, I once saw a neighbor playing with a drone decked out to look like a UFO. People were stopping their cars everywhere, yelling if they had seen a flying saucer. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, you follow the evidence, yeah. And well, what about the river reptiles they see in the West? Fear promotes disbelief and hostility. Yeah, fear can be dangerous. People think, well, a person is afraid they're in danger from something or some person, fear, and they think, oh, person's in danger, so they have fear. But fear can actually cause dangerous situations in different ways. Watch out for fear. Oh, watch out. And KJ, I think a lot of people see inexplicable things. I got it. Inexplicable. I said it right. Inexplicable things that fall outside of their beliefs. They ignore or hide it out of fear of being ridiculed. Oh, that's true. Absolutely. I have talked with a number of people who have seen things other than living pterosaurs, not necessarily dinosaur pterosaurs, but other things that are strange, and they're just not things we normally talk to everybody about because they're just outside of our normal experiences. I hear you. It is amassing. I wish I could see one. I am from Massachusetts. I had a house in the town of Eastern Bird Hill. Oh my God. There, I've gotten sightings from your part of the country, including Massachusetts. Oh yeah. Yeah, sightings of modern pterosaurs. Now it's warming up and people outside more. Keep your eyes open, watch. Watch, see what you see. Not everything that flies you see in the corner of your eye is necessarily a bird. Just take a look and see if it's a bird. Because eventually one of us will see a pterosaur if we all do this one thing is we just watch on the sky more, watch birds or apparent birds more and more carefully. And one of us could see a modern pterosaur in the next couple of years. You just have to keep watching and keep an open mind to whatever you see. They're not common, of course. They're mostly nocturnal, so it's not easy. Well, they saw two pterosaurs, flying pterosaurs, called Bird Hill to this day, fighting. Two pterosaurs fighting. That's interesting. A cop saw one from Eastern, saw one. I know a police officer I contacted a few years ago who's retired from the police department in this particular upstate New York area. He told me about the pterosaur he saw when he was on duty. Yeah, he saw one, but he didn't tell anybody except his wife until after he retired. Now he actually has his real name out for public view on my publications and web pages and so on. KJ, I interviewed a famous Thunderbird witness this week. He said other witnesses called him all the time because they feel he's the only person who will believe them. Yes, and we are going to have representatives in this nonprofit organization, which will be called Animal Discovery. Let me get this here. Animal Discovery. And we will have representatives. We already have 2 representatives, and the nonprofit is not even organized yet. We have a representative in back east somewhere, Kentucky or Tennessee. Shoo, how could I forget? I forgot what state it was. It was back east. And then we have another one for the Spanish language for the whole world. Okay, get back to the chat. Yeah, people need somebody they can talk with, not just me. I mean, I don't want to get overwhelmed with hundreds of people calling me in one week. Well, we need this nonprofit organization so that we'll have other people that eyewitnesses can talk with, not just me. I have research to do on the sightings we already have from 18 years of work. I still have to put the database together and just all this analysis. A lot of work we have to do. Land in the street near where I lived. True story. A giant bird, no feathers. True story. Who here has personally seen a cryptid? KJ says Eastern Pennsylvania. If has like to donate. Oh, sure. Keep us in mind. We will need donations, though. I have confidence there'll be a lot of people donating. So don't worry if you forget, because we will have lots of donations coming in. But we're glad that you'll be a part of it. Welcome your donation as soon as it's organized. Don't send anything to me now, as I can't officially take a donation. Fernando says, hey, I'm back. Thank you, Fernando. Delighted you're back. Cool. You were here a little earlier this evening. Fernando's been here before, too, on other live streams that we have here. We still have a good amount of time left. We're going to still be doing some things. Excuse me. Still, these wretches, yeah, there'll be unbelievers, people making fun of us. That's true. Usually better just ignore them. Sometimes we can talk about the kind of things they say, ridicule that they say, they're just closed-minded, and that's the way it is. Jesse B. Cuting, I've seen a roping in some UFOs. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. But basically, yeah, let me know. Okay, yeah, sure. Well, it will be definitely on one of the live streams. See, these are Friday afternoon live stream chats, and I try to start these pretty close to 4:30. Today we started pretty much on the 4:30 Mountain Time, which would be 3:30 in the afternoon West Coast time in California, Oregon, and it would be like 6:30 beginning in the evening on the East Coast. And I hope I can just keep on doing this week after week and month after month and just keep on going. There's so much we need to cover. I didn't tell you everything about the carbon dating of dinosaur bones. There's a lot more we could have gotten into tonight. A lot more. And I could have gotten more images. It's just so much to do. Yeah. KJ, I believe the proverbial flying saucer could land on the White House lawn, and after a couple of days of excitement, people would just go back to their daily lives. Oh, that's funny. Thank you, KJ. I like that. I like that comment. Donate to this good man. Thank you, Buckfell. What is doing? Yeah, absolutely. And it will be. I need to give you the name of this. So keep up at the web page is already here. This is a web page, Animal Discovery, animal-discovery.org. That's animal-discovery.org. And here's one article here about the rope and pterodactyl. That's already up on the website. So the website is operating. It's here. It's going, but it's not officially a nonprofit organization yet where we can take donations and you can be tax deductible, that kind of thing. It's not got to that. Truth matters. Thank you, Michael. Fernando. Okay, so like I was going to say earlier, I'm a hunter, and when I killed my first bird a couple of weeks later, I saw that the bird had some type of scratches. I didn't know what until I saw some footprints. Ooh, that's interesting. They had 3 toes and they were small. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. I understand. And Q Dingo, I saw a smaller pterosaur without a tail or feathers chasing seagulls. Well, that's interesting. There are some of these flying creatures, pterosaurs, that do not have long tails. They don't have any major tails that are at least easily visible. In fact, there are that type. They're not as common, but they are definitely out there, and they're different parts of the world. Fernando, they had 3 toes and they were small. Yeah. Okay, we got that. Carbon dating is corrupt, false. Well, that's a deep subject. Mainly what we know, regardless how you feel about it, carbon dating in general, the carbon dating that they did with the dinosaurs showed that the dinosaurs were not nearly millions of years old. They lived much more recently. The other side of the coin with carbon dating is it possible that carbon dating could be telling us that things are much older than they are? That, I understand that. And there are definitely some good points on that, McPhail, and good points there. It's a deep subject, though. It's hard to cover tonight. We don't have that much time even tonight. But it does something it's a good point that there can be a lot of misunderstanding in certain types of carbon-14 dating where people think that humans lived much longer ago than they actually did because of certain assumptions about the Earth and so on. And if the assumption is wrong, then that messes up other things too. Fernando, my first instinct was something out of Jurassic Park until I saw some type of little 2-legged animal. Okay, just says how old. McPhail, yeah, you got it. Okay, how old? Oh, I don't have all the information with me, but this carbon dating that was done a few years ago on dinosaur fossils. There was some carbon dating done, of course, with human remains, with people's bones of humans. And some of the dinosaurs were more recent than the people were, according to the carbon dating. That's weird. But that's what the carbon dating shows, that some dinosaurs lived more recently than some people did. But weirdness. I think it's a lot of things involved here, inaccuracies and misunderstanding. It's complicated. Can't really get into it deeply, unfortunately, tonight. There's a lot of things involved. In the Melville, have they carbon dated that soft tissue they retrieved from the T-Rex bones? That's a good question. But we need to remember that that's a separate type of evidence. In other words, we have two very different kinds of evidence that at least some dinosaurs lived much, much more recently than most scientists have assumed, not nearly millions of years ago. Soft tissue and carbon dating are two totally different things, but they both point to the same thing. Those dinosaurs lived much, much more recently, not millions of years ago. They both point to the same, those two things both point to that same point to that. Have they carbon dated to use the T-Rex bones? I wish I had time to get into that. We're how much time to, there are other dinosaurs. I don't recall seeing a T-Rex in this particular study, but that doesn't mean that none of them have been examined, right? It's just the ones that I've looked at today. Those number of different kinds of dinosaurs. I don't think I saw a T-Rex among that type. But there's more of this to it than that. And Fernando, because a few that tried hunting it with my cousin, but both things were gone. Okay, thank you very much, Farland. Fernando, I'm sorry, Fernando. Thank you for telling us that. And Paul Paul's CS Computers, great work. So much more needs to be done. Many closed minds. Yeah, thank you for joining us, Paul. Yeah, there's so much more needs to be done. That's for sure. Well, many animals very, very long, like the Greenland shark. Agreed. Yeah. Oh, there's so much in the world. Oh, I wish I could just spend time on these and get lots of videos and images to show you on these live streams, and we can get to looking at and talking about so many different things here. So much to cover. Fernando, also, what is your thoughts on the Australian cryptid, the Barunga? Yeah, I've heard of that. Interesting things. Just weird things in the legends in Australia. Not just that one, but other things too. Bunyip, is it? And other things too. They have living tissue, live tissue from dinosaurs. Yeah, very recent dinosaurs those are. That this tissue is not even solidified yet. It's still soft. Yeah, Q Dingo. Natives in Australia know of raptor dinosaurs in Australia. Yeah, there are a number of points that'd be nice to get into sometimes. Actually in other parts of the world too. And McFall says live tissue from dinosaurs, a false term made up rod means lizard. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. But George Mueller, thank you for joining us. What is the cost you go to New Guinea to look for opens? The cost is some thousands of dollars at least, if not tens of thousands. It's quite a few thousand. Much of it is in the transportation to get there, but there's also some of the places in New Guinea, they don't have good hotels, but they still charge you like it's a good hotel. Unfortunately, you're American, you pay more than you really what the hotel is worth. Look for opens, and I wouldn't advise you to go to Papua New Guinea to look for opens. There's so many dangers. I know I've done it myself, and I know I'm telling you don't do what I did, but I'm telling you there's so many things you need to know ahead of time, long ahead of time, to prepare over a period of many, many months, if not years, to prepare for. And then there's dangers that you have to be prepared for, and then you can so easily fail unless you have millions of dollars to spend on a long-term expedition, which not many people do who want to do that, Fernando, I have a question. Have you had any reports near the Oklahoma Panhandle or near Liberal? Yeah, a lot of reports from Oklahoma and Kansas over the years. Many reports, eyewitness reports, quite a few. And we can get into certain areas in the United States if you like, and just get into certain sightings of pterosaurs in that part, perhaps Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, and Missouri, for example, in that area. Perhaps we can do that if you want. Leave a comment on under the video when we're finished here. But McCall, 40% of Australia is unknown. Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Australia is basically wilderness, remote interior of a huge continent. It's a continent, that country. It's also a continent. The only continent that's a country, and vice versa. Yeah, a lot of areas there. Now, it's not that habitable for many different types of life, but still, who knows what's out there. There are reports of gigantic pterosaurs, pterodactyls in Australia for sure. Really big ones. Living cryptids all around the world. Yeah, we only look in our own backyards. Yeah, be good to concentrate on what's here. I have had sightings just a few miles from where I live here in Murray, Utah, just to the south, a few miles in that part of Utah. Living cryptids, yeah, thunderbirds, yes, many places, yes. Good, absolutely wonderful. We're going to get ready to wrap it up now. And remember, every Friday, these Friday afternoon live stream chats begin at 4:30. We usually end around 6:30 at the latest. And this is mountain time I'm talking about. So it'll be 3:30 to 5:30 California time, and 6:30 to 8:30 on the East Coast. But wide gauge says sharks can live to be over 200 years old. Imagine the Loch Ness monster with the same life. Could have been born in 1838. Yeah, some animals live very long, and some of them grow very fast, like the red devil squid, that giant squid off the coast of Mexico. Forgot the name of that squid. They grow so fast, and they can be dangerous. Yeah, never been to Utah. Oh. Hope you can come here sometimes. Beautiful territory. Especially nice if you like skiing. If you ski in the winter, well, yeah, there's places to ski. Pushed animals out of the mountains, including my pterosaur. They may live in cliff caves. Yeah, there are caves in Utah. And we do have pterosaurs here. Pterodactyls in Utah, yeah. Matter of fact, it's not a live stream, but it's a regular uploaded video on this channel, Protect Animal Life, about sightings in Utah. Chessie B, did anyone try call blasting like what they do with Bigfoot Lake at Lake Pung? I hope that works. I need to get back with that explorer though. You're okay, but we have much to discuss. Oh, so much to talk about. Oh, Qdingos has something interesting. I hear whistling at night draws pterosaurs. Oh, I don't know. Interesting. Thank you so much for joining us. This is I'm just delighted at our discussions today. We got into something that's so different with these carbon dating methods for dinosaur bones. And images, sometimes we can get into images that people have drawn over the centuries before there were actually scientific discoveries of dinosaurs and pterosaurs. Yeah, let me make a note of that here on Melvor. It's old art, dinosaurs, and pterosaurs. Yeah, we got a live stream about that. Some of these, they have so many things to do. I might have to just do a regular video during other days of the week, and you might check the channel, see if I've brought up something else besides just a Friday live stream. But everybody have a great weekend. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here, and so much for your support and your wonderful comments and incredible things we are to discuss, and discoveries in science and things that very few people know about. And if you can find some way to let people know, refer people here to our videos and protect animal life pages here. This is what we have the title for tonight. But so grateful you are here, and have a great evening. Thank you.